Greetings and welcome to Smartwatch Ticks. We're a YouTube channel on the web at smartwatchticks.com. Today is an exciting day. We have two of the world flagship smartwatches, the Kospet PRIME 2 and the LEMFO LEM12 PRO. Both of them Android 10 watches. Now, if you are following our channel and following these watches, you know that Android 10 has been a little challenging. It's got a little bugs in it, and the battery life on these watches hasn't been that great. And guess what? That's all behind us now. The good folks over at fullandroidwatch.org, this address here, discourse.fullandroidwatch.org, led by Pablo 11, have completely revamped Android 10 for smartwatches, way beyond patching up Android 7, which was patched from 6, which was past anyway. No, cleaned out all the junk and everything in there, and well, wait till you see. We're going to show you both of these watches in just a moment. But I want to also point out the bands on these things. These are not stock bands. So big shout out to Straps Co., who has developed and designed specific bands for these watches. Check this one out with the holes in it that give it an entirely different look and work really well with the large size of the Prime 2. And Straps Co., another one of our wonderful sponsors, is available at tinyurl.com/strapsco. If you use that link, you get 10% off of any bands that you order. So check these bands out. They are amazing. We got a video up showing a whole lot more of them as well. But what we're here for is this new firmware. And what I've done, I've gone to the website with the full Android watch. There's a couple of threads in there. One is on the Z32 Pro firmware, which is the firmware used in the LEMFO LEM12 Pro. The other one is the D09 firmware, and it's in the Prime 2. And I pulled out what Pablo 11 has put out for everyone and kind of put them both together here in a frequently asked questions and a disclaimer, an overview. And I'm going to show this briefly now on the screen, and then we'll talk in more detail about it later because I want to get you going. Here's the background. Here's disclaimers about it. You are going to have to flash this firmware. It is not yet coming through an over-the-air push. And one of the big important things is if you guys are willing to do this and competent to do it, if they really need feedback on all of these changes and improvements to convince, honestly, Kospet and LEMFO, both teams over there are watching what's going on, but they haven't committed to putting it out in general to everyone yet. So your help as a trailblazer, if you got one of these watches, is really, really important. If you don't have the watches yet, make sure you check the reviews we've got up on them. In the buying links of those reviews, I've got, or in the show notes of the reviews, I've got the buying links for these watches for you. And I highly recommend, especially at this point, with complete changing of the Android 10 firmware and the overall operating system, that you look into picking up the Prime 2 or the LEM12 Pro if you're wanting an Android 10 watch. Bigger, smaller, whatever your criteria is, they're there. So we got the disclaimers. Then we go into the stuff that has changed. I'm going to show you each of these items pretty much as we go along, but just so you can come back here to the beginning of the video and freeze frame it if you want to, you can go over all of this stuff specifically right here. So more information about how the apps work, and then I got to show you this. Is so cool. It really is. I've got them all set up for it. I'm going to show you. Beyond what you see here, I've got a couple of additions that are the icing on the cake. This is the cake, and I'm going to show you the icing. It's got a weather app, tells you a little bit now how to make sure you get the weather, and other information down here. And finally, how to install. You have to do a firmware upgrade using the Flash tool that you can get over at the Full Android Watch website. You also need the Flash file, which is the magic that makes these things work, and it's different for each one, and you have to install the right one in the right watch. So definitely, if you're going to do the flashing, I'm going to turn you over to those guys, and you definitely have to go over to this website to do it. In the show notes here, I'm going to have a much longer specific link to each of the threads, the Z32 Pro thread and the D09 thread, and whichever one you've got, the LEM12 Pro or the Prime 2, follow that thread and you'll find where you can download the package for flashing and you can download the actual firmware file itself. Now, the magic. Check this out. Are you ready? I've got this little white dot on here. That's Floating Toucher, and it is that's a separate app. I've talked about it a lot. You guys probably know about it. And I have it set up so when I touch it, I bring up this circle, and if I touch the top one, look at that. I can turn the watch off. I'm not touching the buttons. That's the important thing. I'm trying to get away from any wear and tear on the buttons. There you go. Now, check this out. Boom, boom. Oh, come on! Stage fright. Hello. There. Double tap to wake on both of these. You can have the twist your wrist to wake. I'll show you how you get to set all this stuff up. Or you can do the double tap to wake. Tap the button, turn it off. Simple as that. Let's begin with this one. Here it is, the Prime 2 freshly flashed. Say that 3 times in a row. Freshly flashed, freshly flashed, freshly flashed. Good. Everything up to here has been the complete flashing and reconstitution of the watch. When it eventually comes to a page, it comes to your language page. Now, just so you know what languages are included in the new firmware, we're going to scroll through that first time here for you. Lots of different versions of English. Check it out. It's nice that for many of the languages, they're putting another version or another way of saying it in parentheses for those of you who don't read the language. But this is a very extensive list of supported languages here. And you saw that English was selected, US. So I'm just going to take that one. It comes into the standard page with your height and weight and everything else. You confirm that. It's going to get, of course, into scanning for the Y-Watch 2 app to tether it. We're going to skip out of all of that because the very first thing we want to do with this one is do a factory restore. So once you've set it all up with flashing, you want to come over here, go down to your system. Inside a system, go down to the reset options and select erase all data factory reset. And do that. And double check it, let it go. And now it's going to be almost like you just flashed it fresh, but it's clearing everything out of memory, old residual code from before, and going to be completely reinstalling now fresh, clean, flashed firmware. So we'll be right back. Finally, seriously, it can take 5 to 10 minutes. Don't freak out. It's not stuck. It's not broken. Let it go. Go do something. Then come back. And when it's done, you should be back at this page. So we have now completely flashed and factory restored it. We're really good to go. I'm going to cover the really hottest things that you need to know right up front. And the rest of you that can hang out for a little while, we'll go into a lot more details. Pick your language, confirm your stuff. I'm going to skip out of all of this to get to what I want to show you. And there we are with our opening page. Very first thing, going to swipe down. You got your power screen, date and time. You got this screen, right? Now, you notice that you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 levels of brightness that you can play with right here. I'm going to set it on probably number 2 for this to keep it dim so you have some good use out of it. Check this out. We're going to come over here to settings. We're going to go into display. We're going to come down here to lift to wake. That's to twist your wrist to see the time. And brand new, tap to wake. Turn those on. Okay? Going to get out of here. Google Play is trying to do its thing. Double tap, it lights up. Double tap, it doesn't go off. But I got a fix for that for you. We'll show you later on in the video. You turn it off here. That is brand new, and that's how you turn it on. Now, the most important thing you're going to want to know is how to turn the watch off. You press and hold. There's your menu. You press power off, and nothing happens. You press reboot, and nothing happens. You press switch output, and that will switch between big and small. In fact, if we have something up, I don't know, let's try messages. Okay, there you go, messages. I'm going to press and hold. I'm going to tap it. Look at that. It switches it. You don't have to do anything else. Tap it once, it's a square. Press and hold. Tap it again, it's a circle. Easy. But tap power off, tap reboot doesn't work. You gotta hold them down. That's the new thing. So many people are going to think, I can't turn my watch off. No, yes you can. Press and hold. 3, 2, 1, you've done it. It's not going to ask for confirmation. It's just going to shut it down. Got those? Those are probably the 2 or 3 biggest things that brand new with the watch. Now let's keep going. When you first start using the watch, it's going to come up with this Google Play Protect thing is turned on. Great. It just got to go through its little thing, and it'll say it looks good. You can recycle that again, and it'll check all the stock apps for you a second time. But just deal with it, otherwise it kind of keeps hounding you for that. Remember, you can press, switch, and you're right back to the square. Really fast and efficient nowadays. Okay, next. All those silly little ancillary apps have been stripped out and replaced with the clean Google ones. For example, Contacts is now Google Contacts, which can synchronize, of course, to your calendar, or your address book across all platforms. Sign into Google, get access to your overall contacts. Bail out of there. We've got Calendar, which is now, of course, Google Calendar. I haven't logged in yet, so you're just seeing the basic framework of each of these apps. But, of course, once you set up and log into your Google account, and I recommend doing it in the Play Store, launch the Play Store, log in there, because it's when within the Play Store that it's going to update the Google Play services and other things. So that's a really good one to work with. In addition to these, you've got the dialer. Where is that? Phone. Okay, look at this. It's not just a standard phone dialer. It's the Google phone dialer. So with the SIM card installed, yes, you can make telephone calls. And you can do VoIP if you're on the internet or through cellular data. Through Google, you've got all that capability too. So it's a much more robust and enhanced telephone system because you're using the Google dialer as well. In the same vein, come over here to Messages, and look, you got the Google Messenger. And again, between the two, the phone and the Messenger, you have VoIP, so you can do kinds of video chats and regular connections as well. All of that Google stuff is in here, and new, when you press and hold the bottom button, you activate your Google Assistant. Of course, you got to be signed in. I can go so rapidly now because I haven't signed in, but that's how you would say the equivalent of OK trigger word to launch Google Assistant. You have the Assistant right now simply by pressing and holding the bottom button. Bunch of new clean additions to this OS. Now, some of the other things are a little more esoteric. You don't see them right up front. For example, when it comes into the phoning, and you get into that through the settings to set up your SIM card, and you might need to do an APN adjustment. It was awkward and funky before. That's all been straightened out and clean. So now you can add an APN if you're going to use an off-brand third-party SIM card or something in here. You also have an upgraded file manager. When you go into here, you get a completely different look. You can search by images, audio, video, documents, and you can have access to your whole drive, of course, if you set this whole thing up, give the proper permissions and all of that stuff. You'll be able to see your hard drive, or basically your memory, and drill down in there. So if you're going to sideload apps and things like that, you can do all of that as well. And that's in the new File Manager. Another little thing you guys might want to know about, quick and easy thing to do, go to Settings, go into your display again, down here where we turned on the tap to wake and all of that. You can also come in here to your font size, and notice it's set for small. You have a full range of fonts. Look at what they are now. I'm going to take us all the way up here to the largest, and we'll just leave it at that. And now this is across the whole thing. See how everything is much larger? And when we get back here to our main screen, you've got much larger fonts here. And for a big watch, personally, I like the larger fonts. It's easier to see. That is homogenized across the entire OS. By having that set in. By the way, weather, we've got a thing for weather on how you set that up the first time. You got to turn GPS on. Let it acquire your location, and after that you can leave GPS off and it can get updates for bringing in the weather. But the weather is now working seamlessly anywhere, apparently, in the world. In terms of watch faces, you've got the classic one it comes with that you can launch the camera directly from here by touching that hot button. You also have these other stock watch faces. Now, I don't have any of the custom faces from the fullandroidwatch.org. They got a bunch of designers over there with faces. Alrod's got a bunch of faces, but I wanted to show you the pure stock watch and all of the faces that come with the updated firmware. There's a good selection of them. We've seen all of these before, I believe. And I'll let you guys pick one. Notice it's branded Kospet. So this particular operating system for the Prime 2 is definitely been branded for Kospet by putting their logo on many of the watch faces. There you go. Now, one last thing with the Kospet, and this comes after you've gone into settings, you've gone into network, and you've set up your Wi-Fi, okay? Got to do all that stuff first. Then you're going to go down into the Play Store, set up your account with the Play Store, okay? And then you're going to come down here to My Apps and Games. Now, give it a while. After you actually sign up, it might take an hour. I'm not sure how long, but eventually, it's going to give you the chance to update. Now, I've turned off automatic updating. That's normally already on. I suggest you turn it off to save battery life. You don't want Google constantly pinging and updating, even over Wi-Fi, because it's going to eat battery life. So turn your automatic updates off, but when you get this first one, look at all of these apps that are the basic apps in here that need updating. So make sure before you really begin doing anything with your watch, get on Wi-Fi, get into the Play Store, log in, come on over here, hit that update all, and let it update everything clean. Then reboot your watch, not factory restore it, but just I like to shut it down all the way and then bring it back up fresh. And then go wild, everybody. You got a brand new watch. Now that you've seen most of all of the functions of the new update to the Android 10 firmware in the Kospet Prime 2, let's switch over to the LEMFO LEM12 PRO. Similar watch, but different firmware, different implementation. Biggest primary difference between the two is watch faces. You saw the Kospet one has a lot of Kospet branded ones, and if you have an LEM12 Pro, you know you have some LEMFO ones as well, especially at the beginning that are all kinds of fancy animated background wallpaper graphics. They're not in this one because this is a generic operating system that literally could be used on any upcoming Android 10 watches. So we're going to walk through the watch faces for you. This is the first one. These will all be the stock watch faces that ship with the watch. Now, of course, you can install custom watch faces. A lot of people do. There's two ways of doing that. Either you can use the built-in system here where when you get to the end of the list, and there's a lot of faces in here, you can hit the little plus sign and go into the server. And from the server, this tied into China, if you're on the web, on Wi-Fi or cellular, you have access to all kinds of different watch faces. Pick one you like, tap the button, download it. We all know that. There's no change to that. Then when you leave here and select it, you've got that watch face. So the stock watch faces are generic in nature. There's several of them, but none of them are branded for a specific watch, and especially not yet for the LEMFO LEM12 Pro. If LEMFO decides to release this as an OTA update for your LEM12 Pro watch, I'm sure they'll brand it with their own watch faces again like they have in the past. Moving on, you got the same old layout that you had before. We are back now to having all these different options here for your brightness. However, you notice that I've got the display brightness control in here called display brightness. That's a little slider that overrides that. The older version of Android 10 would not allow for the installation of display brightness or for floating toucher, but now they do. And that is really, really sweet. Not just those two, but a whole bunch of, well, basically any app that you want. Disney Plus, Discovery Plus, all of those things are tied in, linked to the full Google suite of security, and they work. No, I'll just put it that way, they work. So everything else is very, very much the same, and you go into the settings. Again, you've got the square and the circle options that you can do. I can go down in here into display. I can come down and turn on or off the tap to wake or the lift to wake, or both of them or neither of them. You can wake the screen when you receive notifications. Of course, you can change and put on the dark theme now. All the other features we showed you, phone, messenger, contacts, calendar, all of those things now tie into Google. So you got everything Google-oriented. All the other apps, basically the same that are in here. Maps, Chrome is, of course, installed now and fully functional as well. So the double tap to wake it up is available in this watch and in any of these versions now of the new Android 10 OS. So basically, the same basic operation, same information. Once again, by way of repeat, the stuff that's changed, the stock file manager's been updated. All of the Google apps are working. The permissions manager has granular control over permissions. I didn't show any of that, but test it out. You can nail it. You can just zero in on the permissions that you want and don't want. You can install any other apps that you'd like to from the Play Store, side loading them. The old custom apps that were kind of junk have been removed. Yeah, Task Cleaner in the widget section that never really worked and has now been moved to the long press of the power menu. And again, okay, we'll finish this up. All synchronization is working and so forth. These are the new functions. The adjustable font size, we saw that on the Kospet PRIME 2, the APN editing, and so forth. All of that stuff's there. And on this one, press and hold. You can clear your recent tasks here, right? Press and hold. You can switch output right there. And of course, reboot and power off do not work unless you press and hold them, and then they'll shut down. And the shutdown and boot up sounds, you didn't hear them? That's because they've been actually turned off in the settings. If you go into settings and you go into sound, you have control of all of this, and down here you have all of these selectable dial pad, touch sounds, touch vibration, and there's your power on sound. So if you like it quiet, so you turn your watch on, it's not going to wake everybody up at night or bug people in a theater, you can leave that off. It's off by default, but that's how you turn it on. Oh, all right, we'll play the sound for you. Goodness, for shutting it down, because I want to demonstrate the long press, touch and hold, power off. You've heard that sound before, and that's as simple as that, how you turn it off. So, by way of summary, we have new firmware for the LEMFO LEM12 Pro and the PRIME 2, the D09 firmware branded for the Kospet, It's a Kospet product, and I expect to see this in an OTA soon, coming to you guys. Look at that, double tap and it comes up. I love it. Coming soon. The LEM12 Pro, work in progress, and both of these are version 1 of the firmware. So please think about installing the firmware, updating your watch, whichever one you've got. None of the others will work, but just these two. But update them and give feedback over in the forum, which is right here, discourse.fullandroidwatch.org. Again, in the show notes, I got the direct link to the threads that cover both of these watch firmware updates. All right? You've been watching us here at Smartwatch Ticks. We really appreciate, especially on this one, if you can give it a like, give it a thumbs up. The vendors are going to be watching. If a lot of you guys like it and say you want this firmware on your watch, they will be likely to move forward and take the time and energy and money to implement it. But it's all up to the consumer. It's all up to you guys. It's all up to support. So a thumbs up on this video, even if you don't like any of the others I do. Like this one, okay? Not for me, for them, for the Discourse guys, and for the companies to know that you want this firmware updated into your machine. All right, we will see you again soon. Thanks for watching, and yeah, we're going to come back with a whole bunch of more stuff, and we'll give you updates in the comments section or in the show notes as things shift with this, to hopefully let you know when the OTAs are going to go out, if they are, and you could be expecting to see an update on your watch. Make sure you have it on Wi-Fi. There's that startup sound. Go into your settings, go all the way down to about, you know the drill, and then check for updates. And if it's there, you're going to get it automatically. And if it's not yet, come back and give us a thumbs up. All right. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon.